Hello and welcome back to the Lowdown, everybody, where today we are choosing the best 11 in the world right now. We have a massive debate about Bukayo Saka versus Lamine Yamal. I think that's really harsh. I think most Arsenal fans watching this would probably have Yamal in.
I don't know.
If it was a Premier League 11, I wouldn't have had Saka.
Who is the best Premier League centre-back?
And I actually sometimes feel like he's the leader between him and Saliba.
I just think Van Dijk is just still better than him in all those aspects.
And which defensive midfielder deserves more respect? But it feels like because he signed at a similar time as another young Frenchman who's probably got more flair to him in Camavinga, he maybe didn't get appreciated that much. Hello and welcome back to the Lowdown, everybody. Joining me and Mikey McCubbin today, we've got a real treat for you. It's Mina Ibrahim of the United View. If you're a fan of men's or women's football, you've no doubt seen her face because she is absolutely everywhere. Mina, how are you doing? Welcome to the Lowdown.
Thank you guys for having me. This is my first appearance, so hopefully I can have a Garnacho-esque debut, maybe.
Nice.
Absolutely. And so people can keep abreast of where you are and where you're working. You know, I've summed up some of the places, but you're pretty much everywhere.
Yeah, pretty much everywhere. I have my own podcast. If you're into women's football, I'm on United View if you want to see my Manchester United content. And then I'm everywhere else talking about non-Man United stuff. So if you're into anything, you can find me anywhere.
A true all-rounder. We've got a huge topic today, guys. We are picking the best 11 in the world right now. On the basis of the start of the season, you can, of course, bring in, previous seasons, previous performances as well. This could be a very spicy episode indeed. Let's kick off with our goalkeeper, the best goalkeeper in the world right now. Mikey, do you want to take it away? Who do you think is the best goalkeeper in the world right now?
Yeah, I mean, this is actually a tough one because I think, there are a number of goalkeepers who are around a similar level. But I found it really hard not to go with the current narrative, which is David Raya being the best goalkeeper in the world. It has been remarkable. David Raya's improvement this season, especially after the weekend with Arsenal getting such an important result away at City with 10 men. And Raya's performance in that was just, absolutely superb. I found it hard to argue against. I can't see a keeper this season who's had as big an impact on their team. I think, Arsenal's defensive record has been very good, but I think it's partly because a big part of it has been Raya. And I think last season, this time last year when he was bought by Arsenal, I think there was still a sizable amount of, Arsenal fans and non-Arsenal fans who were questioning, well, is he actually a big enough step up on Aaron Ramsdale? Now, fast forward 12 months, and that is, the very idea of that is preposterous, isn't it? Absolutely. And you think back to that game against Newcastle, where Arsenal felt that they'd been a bit wronged, kind of around November last year, but even then, Raya had made a couple of mistakes. But I just think what he offers this Arsenal side, I think over the course of this season will win them a serious amount of points. Just his cross claiming, at the very minimum is absolutely brilliant. I think he was claiming a higher percentage of crosses than any other keeper in world football last year. This season he's right up there as well. I think at one point last year he was stopping 1 in 5 crosses coming into the box, which is that's just crazy, isn't it? That's not even, as a percentage of the entire crosses coming into a box, the fact that the keeper is coming for those. And we saw that again against City. And this season, obviously, so far at least, we've seen Arsenal adopt quite a defensive approach, partly because, they've been down to 10 men in 2 games. Partly because as well, I think, Arteta is, I think, more willing than ever to win the Premier League in a slightly more ugly way than I think he would have liked to have done maybe 2 years ago. And the fact that Arsenal are so good at forcing teams, no matter how good they are, into just pinging balls into the box, Raya can just deal with every single one, can't he? So I think that's been massive. And also his shot stopping's improved massively, of course. We saw that one in the Champions League last week, that double save against Villa as well. Was really good. Yeah, that one as well. So I just think every part of his game has improved. The relationship that he has with Gabriel and Saliba just seems to have gone to a new level. I think Arsenal just they really do look like the best defence in world football right now. And I think out of everyone in that side, he has been the one who's kind of gone up a level in the last 6 months.
Yeah, I think that's a very fair shout indeed. Mina, did you have anyone different? Did you agree?
As soon as I looked at the 11, I thought the first one I'm going to put is the easier one, which is David Raya for me. I thought of, United bias and maybe Onana, but I thought, let me not embarrass myself. Let me be honest.
Has had a good start to the season.
He's had a better start, but I also think that's because of Manchester. I think Manchester United's defence has improved a little bit in terms of especially the shots that they're conceding compared to last season. I think they're already conceding less shots both on goal and on target. So Onana has improved to an extent, but like you said, I can't argue about David Raya, and I actually think if Arsenal go on to win the league this season, it's not going to be the other signings that they've made like Tim. I think this is going to be the signing that kind of justifies why they're going to win the league. And just in that City game, for example, he could have single-handedly won them the game with all those saves that he made. The result could have been completely different. He's a great shot stopper, great at claiming crosses, and great at just dictating his area, his box, which is what some keepers might not have to the best of levels, and some keepers might not have it at all. And also for the price that he joined at for a goalkeeper in this day and age, I can't argue that. I think Raya number one.
Yeah, I'm sorry to be boring. I had him down as well. I think an 89% save percentage, only topped by Alisson in the Premier League. There's only 5 goalkeepers in the entirety of Europe that have been forced into more saves so far this season, which I think does speak to game state. Like, Arsenal have been under pressure in games because they've had 2 red cards. They probably haven't looked as impressive on the ball as they have in previous seasons as well. They are facing a little bit more traffic. I think only Brentford are conceding more shots per game in the entire Premier League than Arsenal this season, and their possession stats are way down. And of course, it's a small sample size. We can't get overexcited. Arsenal haven't suddenly turned into, a Jose Mourinho. Well, that sounds like a criticism.
They have.
But
Jose Mourinho, Chelsea,
they
2006.
haven't turned into like a pure Mourinho peak side. Like, there is still amazing on the ball ability there, but so far this season, because of circumstance, because of red cards, because of injuries, they haven't really got going in an attacking sense, and their defence has been under huge pressure, and David Raya has responded. I wanted to give a quick shout out. This is clearly just on the basis of this season so far, but to Vanja Milinkovic-Savic, most well known because his brother Sergei was that Lazio superhero for so long, now playing out in Saudi Arabia. But he's been absolutely brilliant so far for Torino. He's helped them to the top of Serie A. He's prevented 4 XG already in 5 games, which is the most in Europe's top 5 leagues. And it's a great story developing there with Torino. Obviously, it doesn't feel like they'll be there by the end of the season. They won't probably even be in the top 4. But there's Che Adams scoring goals, Steven Zapata rolling back the years at Torino as well. So I wanted to give him a quick shout out, but we're all in agreement. David Raya has to be in.
Yeah. Not much of a debate so far. Hopefully, right back will bring us up.
Well, let's see. I mean, Mina, why don't you kick off this one? Who's been your best right back?
This one was a difficult one. I think there was quite a few positions that I struggled with, just to put aside bias and just think from a complete perspective. I think when you talk about right backs, you have to bring up Trent. I think that's a name that always comes up. I think, the role that Arne Slot has him playing this year is definitely bringing out, showcasing his abilities to a better level, especially, he's in his final year of his contract. Liverpool fans don't know where he's heading. But one thing that has stood out to me quite a lot is his relationship with Gravenberch. Gravenberch, who's playing in that deeper 6 role, kind of supporting on the right-hand side. Obviously, he's got Mohamed Salah in front of him, and he's always going to get forward, create chances. It's not just what's on the stat sheet. I think it's also the eye test as well. So Trent was the name that I looked at, but I also couldn't look past Nazir Mazraoui, for example, because, of course, I'm a United fan, and because I watch him a lot, coming in straight, first game of the season, thrown into 90 minutes against Fulham, arguably for me was man of the match for Man United that game, despite Xerxes coming in and scoring the winner. But it's also the value for money that Manchester United have got. Manchester United sold Aaron Wan-Bissaka. A lot of fans they were questioning the idea, why would you sell your best fullback when it comes to defending? And I've watched Nazir Mazraoui at Bayern Munich, I've watched him at Ajax, but predominantly also I've watched him in the national team where he also played on the left. So to see him come in, play on his traditional preferred side of the right-hand side, build a relationship going forward, but also defensively in his one-on-one duels, he's very, very good. And the big part for me is his value for money. Like, Manchester United didn't spend a lot of money on him, and I think he's probably one of Man United's better players this season. So it's a toss-up for me between Trent and Mazraoui. My United bias is making me lean towards Mazraoui.
Come on.
So I'm going to say Mazraoui, but obviously I can never look bypass Trent.
Yeah, I think Mazraoui is a good shout, to be honest. I think I've been really impressed with him. I think, along with probably Ahmad, he's probably been United's best player so far this season. And given the fact he signed so close to that Fulham game, I think he'd had one training session, maybe?
They signed on Monday, I think it was, or Tuesday, and Friday was the game.
And you're right to point out, and when you talk about Onana as well, United's defence has got better. I mean, it needed to get better. There was only, I think, 5 sides in Europe that conceded more shots on target than United last season, which is mad to think about. And now I think in terms of shots conceded per game, it's at the 6th best record. So they have vastly improved, and Mazraoui's played a role. But Mikey, are you in agreement there?
I can't. I mean, obviously I'm a United fan as well, but I can't quite get behind it. I was actually tempted, like when I was looking like into this team, I was looking at right backs and ones who've performed well so far this season, and Mazraoui does stand out. Like he does stand out even against the elite right backs. But I just think United as a whole, although their underlying numbers look pretty good going forward, I just don't know if I can justify putting any United player into this side right now. And I just think the level that Trent, I kind of feel like with Trent, it's like, you've kind of touched upon it, Mina, but like just his level that he has sustained throughout the years, it's always up there. So even when he's having a fairly average season, he's still having a much better season than most right backs in world football. And I do think, you mentioned how his role has evolved in terms of his relationship with Gravenberch. I think his defensive contribution as well has gone up massively. I think he's making more tackles and interceptions than he ever has done before in his career, and he's spoken very openly about how he's almost challenged Arne Slot to make him a better defender, hasn't he? He's kind of said like, I've told him to be harsh on me in training. And Arne Slot has kind of, more recently come out and said, it's not really about his ability. He's always actually been a good defender, which I think is true. I think he's always, been underrated as a defender. But, the role that he was made to play by Klopp meant that, he was always going to leave some space open.
And the chaos of the system as well.
Yeah.
It felt like, they'd counter press so high up the pitch that there would just be huge swathes of ground that he was trying to cover.
But it's refreshing to see Arne Slot come out and be like, no, actually, he can improve, and this is where he can improve. It's mainly about his concentration. It's not about his ability. He's perfectly capable in terms of his defensive attributes. It's just about being more switched on, I guess, in transition, knowing when to get back into position. So it's kind of refreshing to see, Arne Slot come into Liverpool and not be cowed by, the kind of spectre of Jurgen Klopp before him. He's very willing to come in and publicly challenge Alexander-Arnold in a way where maybe Klopp didn't so much, in public at least. So I think that's really cool to see from that perspective. But even last season when Trent, I think he only ended up getting 4 assists. I think he should have got about 7 or 8 assists by expected assist chances created, which hasn't. I think he's not dropped below 0.4 expected assists per 90 for the last 4 years or something, which is pretty insane.
Consistent.
And when you compare that to Ashraf Hakimi, who's been playing at PSG since 2021 and has won titles for the last 4 seasons running, I think he's only managed it once in his career, and that was last season. When you look at, another outstanding right back in world football, Dani Carvajal, who's of course more defensively minded, but his attacking numbers have never got anywhere near that in terms of his chance creation. And then I guess someone else you'd want to shout out in this conversation is Jeremy Frimpong, but for me, he's just too much of a, he's basically a hybrid wing-back right winger at this point, isn't he, Jeremy Frimpong? I don't know if I could have him in this conversation.
He plays right mid at sometimes for Leverkusen as well.
He is just everywhere, isn't he? I mean, him and Grimaldo just have license to roam, don't they? So I found it hard to bring him into this conversation, at least because there are enough elite right-backs out there. But for me, I'd love it to be Mazraoui. I would love it to be Mazraoui, but I can't look past Trent. I think he's had a really good start to the season.
Fair enough. Yeah, I think I'm going with Trent as well. I think Ashraf Hakimi probably deserves a little shout out as well. He's 1 goal, 2 assists so far this season. And in terms of his shot creating actions, so that's either a shot or the pass that leads directly to a shot, he's at 4.9, which is actually just less than Cole Palmer at Chelsea. And considering the role he's playing as a right back in a more possession orientated PSG than we've seen in recent years with Luis Enrique there, I think that's really, really impressive. The thing is with Hakimi is he's probably never got quite back to the level that he showed at Dortmund, showed at Inter Milan, at least at club level. I think he has been really good for Morocco when, it's all on the line there, and he's had to play a much more defensive role, to be totally honest. And he's been used as a real counter-attacker from deep as well. But I really want to see Hakimi get back to his absolute best. He probably hasn't been the best right back in the world this season. I think I'm going to go with Trent, but I like the shout of Mazraoui too.
You know what? I'm not mad about Trent because I said it was a toss-up between both, so I can't be mad about it.
And what I probably should have said at the beginning of the video, we're going to play 4-3-3 as well. It's the most popular system And in midfield, we're going to try and not just get 3 attacking midfielders in there. It's going to be balanced as well. Yeah. Right, let's move on to centre-backs. I'm going to kick off...
Do you want to name your 2 centre-backs?
Yeah, let's do it in a one-er. Okay, why not? I'm going with Bremer and William Saliba. Now, Bremer is the more interesting shout, I think. 27 years old. He's now in his 3rd season with Juve after joining from Torino. And he's been really consistent there for a number of years. I think he probably has gone under the radar because Juve have been comparatively average to what they were before. But he's rarely injured. He's missed 10 league games in 2 and a bit seasons now. And this season, Juve have not thrilled going forward, which is what many people expected, with Thiago Motta supposedly coming in to sort of release the handbrake on this attack. And, finally, Max Allegri had moved on. Finally sounds harsh because he did really well there across both spells and should be respected. But it was supposed to be a new era of attacking football. Hasn't really materialised. They've had 3 0-0 draws in a row. But Juve are yet to concede a goal this season in 5 games. And they're not massively underperforming their XG as well. It's just 1.84 total XG against so far. And Bremer has been a huge, huge part of that. He's completed the most passes in the Juve squad, as you'd expect. That's kind of what his role dictates. But in Europe as well, his long-range passing has massively improved. Only 5 outfield players in Europe have completed more long-range passes than him. He leads his side for defensive actions, blocks, clearances. He's been everywhere. He's been absolutely everywhere. And I feel like he has been linked in the past with sort of 40, 50 million pounds moves out of Juve when they were trying to balance their books for PSR. But I think he costs more than that now. I think he really would. I think you're looking at a player just outside of the very elite bracket of someone like William Saliba, who is my other shout. And that kind of comes into what I was saying a little bit with David Raya and how much pressure Arsenal have been under, the situation they've been in. And I think Saliba has been pretty much faultless, to be honest. Gabriel's got a lot of headlines because of his amazing record from corners, and I think he's been great and has now completely eradicated the rashness that would see him go to ground so often and get himself in sticky situations. Gabriel's been brilliant, but Saliba has been absolutely brilliant. I think he's won 100% of his tackles, one of only 4 players in the Premier League to do so. And for an Arsenal side that are struggling for fluency, that are struggling in terms of their possession, their pass accuracy, which is 14th in the league, William Saliba has been an absolute totem in a really difficult scenario for Arsenal with missing key players, red cards regularly. And I think William Saliba has to be in. But I don't know whether, Mina, whether you had Saliba, let alone Bremer.
I didn't have Saliba.
Oh, no. Really?
I had his partner, Gabriel. I had his partner, Gabriel, and I had Virgil van Dijk, a guy that I can't look past him. It's like Trent. It's like the argument with Trent. Yeah. I can't look past Virgil van Dijk when we talk about centre-backs, not just Premier League, but in Europe or in the world. With Gabriel, that was a difficult one for me because I've always been fond of Saliba. I feel like when Gabriel came in to Arsenal, there was a little bit of pressure on his shoulders. He didn't really kind of get the ropes immediately. He had, errors in him. But I feel like over the last 12 months, him and Saliba have a great partnership, but a lot of the praise goes towards Saliba. And I think, especially with the way that the season has started, I think Gabriel has been rock solid. You can look at the last 2 or 3 games for Arsenal, just the commanding that he leads in the back line. And I actually sometimes feel like he's the leader between him and Saliba. Arsenal fans might not agree, but I look at the game sometimes and I feel like he's the more commanding one. I think Saliba does the pretty stuff well. He does the I don't want to say the simple stuff, but he does it very elegantly. Gabriel doesn't.
More the warrior.
Yeah, he's more like the as they say in football, the dog. He's got the dog in him. And I really like that. And especially like you said, the goals that he's scored I think away to most of the top 6.
Yeah.
Crashing headers.
I think he's scored more centre-back goals than anyone else since 2022 or something
more
like that.
More than any defender since he arrived in the league.
Well, since he arrived in the league, full stop. Mad. Yeah, it was like 15 or 16 or something. Yeah.
I get Saliba. Like, I completely understand. When I look at Saliba, I think that he's going to be the best centre-back probably by next year. It'll probably be him where we're putting number 1 and putting everyone else around that. But just based on this season so far, and I know it's a small sample size, 5 games, for me, it's Gabriel gets the nod ahead of Saliba. And like I said about Virgil van Dijk, I can never look past Van Dijk. Even though I'm not fond of him as a United fan, I can't look past him.
Yeah, I also can't look past Van Dijk.
You've got Van Dijk in as well?
Yeah, I've got Van Dijk. I think I can't. Like, I think Bremer has obviously had a great start to the season, but I just think Van Dijk.
Can't ignore that record,
what Van Dijk's doing Liverpool have only conceded one goal.
That's true.
Liverpool have only conceded one, and they're playing a more expansive system than Juventus. I think Bremer, great defender. And yeah, probably a bit underrated as a ball player in general. But I just think Van Dijk is just still better than him in all those aspects. You know, I think he's completing now 84% of his long balls, Van Dijk. And I think he's actually, his pass numbers have come down a little bit in terms of actually volume under Arne Slot, but he's now picking better passes, which I think is really impressive. And I also have to take into account last season. For the majority of last season, I know he dropped off a little bit towards the end, but for the majority of last season, Van Dijk was, I think, clearly the best defender in the world, which is not, there was, a couple of seasons before that, there was some worries that maybe he was dropping off a little bit in terms of his defensive displays. But I just think Van Dijk, continues to amaze for me. And I just think he's that elite. And then on the Gabriel Saliba thing, I don't think there's that much to choose between them, to be honest. I'm not really sure there's much. I just went for Saliba because he's still been imperious this season, and I just think with Gabriel, he does offer so much in both boxes. But I just think to that Brighton game, and I think he was at fault for that Brighton goal. That's all it is, really. I've just seen Gabriel come unstuck more than I have Saliba this season.
I think also the chance that Watkins has in the Villa game, that really clear-cut opportunity which he misses, I think that comes about from a Gabriel there as well. Look, we're picking minute details and like moments in games.
Can't be having Bremer in there though. Can't be having Bremer.
Are we confirming no Bremer?
The thing is, I understand the Bremer argument, but you've been outvoted. And just on the Van Dijk thing, I think the system that he's now playing in under Slot in comparison to the Klopp system, I think he's adjusted very well in that back line. I would give an honourable mention to his other partner Konate, because I think Konate has started the season really, really solid. He was one name that I had as a honourable mention. But for me, it's Van Dijk and Gabriel. But I'm happy for you guys to take Saliba because, like Macabre said, there's not really much difference between the two.
Prem biased. It does feel like quite Prem biased so far, but we will get away from
hopefully
that as the game
more
goes
forward
on.
we get.
I'll be fighting the good fight. Okay, so should we go with Van Dijk, and why don't we reward Gabriel? Big goals so far, huge.
All right. Whatever.
I
don't think it's a disaster. I don't think it's a disaster. Right, left back. I actually find left back really, really difficult because I don't think there's that many left backs. Well, I've discussed it in years gone by as well. There's not that many world class left backs about at the moment. And some of the big names, your Theo Hernandez having a bit of a falling out with Paulo Fonseca. I don't think Andy Robertson is the Andy Robertson of a few years ago. That's not saying he's been terrible by any means, but he's not quite at the level he was. Luke Shaw's obviously been injured. Alphonso Davies probably hasn't really shone in the same way. So where did you go with this, Mikey?
Left back, this was a difficult one because I'm kind of slightly going against my principles here. I do like in a 4-3-3 for the full back to be, quite active defensively as well as good going forward. But yeah, like you say, Dukes, there's not loads. You mentioned Theo Hernandez and Robertson, and then the other outstanding kind of left-sided left wing backs or left backs are kind of wing backs who don't actually do a huge amount of defensive work. I just had to go for Grimaldo. I had to go for Grimaldo at Leverkusen. He started the season really well again. I think he's creating 4.3 chances per 90 minutes, which is the top in Europe, aside from Mönchengladbach's Kevin Stoger, who's begun the season on fire. But out of any player in any position to do that, and look, his defensive numbers have come down even on last season. But the fact that, he got 23 goals and assists last year from left wing back, which for context is the same number as Alexander Isak managed, and he scored 5 penalties last year. Grimaldo was not on penalties last year. It's only 2 behind Bukayo Saka, who scored 6 penalties last year.
And free kicks for Grimaldo, pretty much penalties.
Yeah, basically, it's true. But yeah, it's hard to look past. And like you say, Dukes, there wasn't a huge amount of competition. Like if I wanted to be a little bit more of a hipster, I could go for David Raum at RB Leipzig. He had a great season last year, and he started this year really well as well. Again, sticking in the Bundesliga, Max Mittelstadt, I think, is one of the most underrated fullbacks in the game at the moment. Had a great tournament for Germany at the Euros, has started once again really well at Stuttgart. So, Yeah, I think those would be my other shouts. And then actually, you know what, Andy Robertson also I think is like slightly underrated at the moment because he had a bit of a stop-start season last year, but his attacking numbers are still really, really good. But Grimaldo, I think, is the one for me. I don't know if you feel any different.
Fair enough. Mina,
I had Grimaldo, but I had other names in there, but I tried to move away from just Prem, so that's why I ended up going with Grimaldo. But just the honourable mention to Anthony Robertson at Fulham. I think
write him down for an honourable mention.
Yeah,
Great shout.
I had him down because against Manchester United, solid over the last couple of games. He had 2 assists on the weekend, creating a lot of chances for Fulham and building that relationship with Emil Smith-Rowe, Iwobi on the left hand side. So honourable mention for him, but I just went with Grimaldo just because of historically what he's done the last 12 months and just how well he started at Leverkusen this season. And also just, I feel like the bar's quite high now with Bayer Leverkusen. And if he continues to kind of keep to that bar that they kind of set themselves, he'll be the best kind of left back option at the moment, especially with the chances he creates going forward and how well he does it.
Yeah, absolutely. He's a beautiful player to watch for sure. And the sort of areas he takes up, he's absolutely brilliant to watch. Leverkusen had not been the most solid defensively, though. I mean, they've conceded 3 on 2 occasions so far this season. I don't know whether, loaning Kosunu to Atalanta has slightly upset the balance of that backline, maybe.
The midfield has changed a bit as well with Garcia coming in.
A lot of chopping and changing. Andrik hasn't started every game. It has been a fair amount of change, and in forward areas as well, they haven't quite clicked to the same extent as last year. Although, having said that, Victor Boniface has started the season exceptionally well. I went with Grimaldo too. I did love the shout of Anthony Robinson, but it felt like too wild a shout to say he's the best left back in the world right now. But I do think he's just a defensive monster. He's brilliant. I think there's a little bit of a theme developing on how much sort of emphasis we're putting on this season versus like previous seasons as well. Something to keep an eye on as we head into midfield and attack. Let's start with the sort of more defensive-minded midfielder. If you had one, Mina, who did you go for?
I went with Moises Caicedo.
Oh, wow.
I think he's started this season very good for Chelsea. I think he's probably one of Chelsea's better players. I think Enzo Maresca has them playing amazing. Not amazing, but much better than what we've seen under the Todd Bowley era. I think Caicedo is slowly getting back to that level that we once knew at Brighton. I think if you just look in the Premier League, I think he's got most tackles. He's making interceptions, and obviously I would say he got a fluky assist on the weekend against West Ham. But I think just the growth from last year, the pressure that he kind of came in with that price tag, and just how he's kind of kick-started this season, I had to put him in there. I really had to.
I like it. Yeah, I think he's got a lot of... I think understandably with that price tag, with the move... like playing out how it did with Liverpool interested to the final hour. He was under so much pressure last year, as you correctly point out, and that fee, it's impossible not to. When you're playing alongside a midfielder who's kind of struggling to justify their fee as well in Enzo Fernandez, I think he got too much shtick last year, to be totally honest, but did improve as the season went on, and I think it's a good shout. I think he started the season really well. Before I reveal mine, though, Mikey, who are you thinking for yours?
I feel like I might be fighting a little bit of a losing battle here. I've gone for an obvious shout, but also someone who's barely played any football this season and may not play much more football. I did go for Rodri.
What?
I did go for Rodri. Yeah,
he's played like 2 games.
Yeah, he's played for 2 games.
I just thought see him again.
Yeah, we won't see.
Unfortunately.
Yeah,
This is pure historical.
Well, I guess so, but also like he did have an amazing Euros with Spain as well. I don't think I think a lot rightly a lot of praise was given to Fabian Ruiz, and I know he went off at half time in the final, and Tchouameni came on and played brilliantly, but I still think Rodri was like instrumental to Spain getting to that final as well, and had such an amazing season last season as well. I had to take into account a little bit just like what standing he had coming into this season, and for your defensive midfielder to get more goal involvements than anyone bar Foden, Haaland, and Alvarez last season. I think he got like 17, was it? Yeah. Goals and assists last year in the league.
Some big goals as well.
Like, yeah, huge goals, massive clutch player. I was a little bit stuck. This was one that I panicked a little bit on this one, just because it's hard to find it, because it's like I was considering Rice as well, but he's not really a number 6 anymore, Declan Rice at Arsenal. I don't think we've really seen him play as a lone 6 for such a long time. And I was thinking, like, who is the most elite lone 6 in world football? It still is Rodri. I know Kovacic did a pretty decent job, has done a very good job actually, at deputising for him this season. And I just think, a little bit like with Raya, if Arsenal go on to win the league this season now and Rodri remains out, then I think that's going to be a defining reason. So it's almost for what we've not seen. But yeah, I feel like I'm fighting a bit of a losing battle.
I think it's a difficult one to include right now, given the lack of football he's played so far this season. But obviously, if we were doing like a Dream World 11, he'd be like the first name on the team sheet.
Yeah.
I think he's the furthest away from the next best in his position in the world, if that makes sense. Like, he's so clear of every other defensive midfielder, in my opinion. And it's a massive, massive gap, I think. That's not any disrespect to the likes of Declan Rice. It's just a fact at the moment that Rodri is just that good. I went much more on the basis of this season so far, and Real Madrid haven't had a brilliant start, but I think Aurelien Tchouameni has been really, really good. They drew 2 of their first 4 games, but they've won 4 in a row since, including a sort of dodgy performance against Stuttgart, but eventually got over the line in that. And Tchouameni has had a really, not a difficult time at Real Madrid. That seems ridiculous because he's won multiple titles. But it feels like because he signed at a similar time as another young Frenchman who's probably got more flair to him in Camavinga, he maybe didn't get appreciated that much. When people talked about great midfielders, it'd always go back to Modric or Kroos or Bellingham. But this season, Bellingham's missed quite a few games with injury. Kroos obviously retired. Modric has been great when he's played, but is much more playing a sort of bit part role. And it's really been Tchouameni and Fede Valverde that have really held down this midfield. And I think as they go into a new era, it was really important for someone to sort of take this midfield by the scruff of the neck. And for me, it's Tchouameni that's doing that. Most passes into the final third in Europe, or most progressive passes, sorry. I think he's 4th for passes into the final third. And he's also had to play a lot of his football at Real Madrid at centre-back as well because of injuries to Alaba and Eder Militao. So I think he's shown his versatility and deserves to be in that conversation behind Rodri 100% alongside Declan Rice, etc. And has had some big performances for France, as we know as England fans over the last couple of years, particularly in Qatar. So yeah, I wanted Tchouameni to get in there. So I think we should go between Tchouameni and Caicedo. If I'm being totally honest. Mikey, considering your vote is, your option is kind of irrelevant, I think we've decided. Who are you deciding? You get ultimate say.
I do like the Caicedo shout. I think he has been quite underrated. I think he was really, like you say, really important to Chelsea back end of last season, and he has looked good so far this season. But I think if I'm looking at the best defensive midfielder in world football right now, I just want someone who's got a bit more consistency in their passing game, and that is Tchouameni. Like, I think Tchouameni just has more consistency in his passing game. So yeah, I'm gonna go for Tchouameni. Sorry, Mina.
I can agree with I can get on board with it. Also, just because I feel like he's really growing into that role that he's having now at Real Madrid, like you mentioned, retirements, injuries, etc. He's stepping up, and also I think Camavinga is a great player. I'm a big fan of Camavinga, but I think Tchouameni in that system for Ancelotti is just going to work. It's as simple as that. And like you said, his versatility, I think he's played centre-back for more games probably last season than he did probably in his preferred role. So yeah, I understand. I understand.
All right. Fair enough. He's in. Right. We've got 2 kind of midfield slots remaining. I've gone for a sort of 8 star. I've gone for a sort of 10 star.
Should we do our next 2 together?
Oh, okay. Let's do it. Okay.
I quite like the 2
it's
together.
A double reveal. Okay, Mina, who are your final
I'm going to let you guys
midfielders?
go first because there's one person that I'm still tossing up.
Okay.
So I'm just trying
Mikey,
to decide.
Shall I take it away? Okay, cool. This is I think this might be my most fun part of the team.
Okay.
So like, unlike Rodri, I've gone for players very much on form in this bit. And I think my first shout, my 8, because he has been playing in a bit more of an 8 role than he was last season, is one of the signings of the summer so far. And it's, well, I say so far, the window's ended, but one of the signings of the season so far, shall I add. João Neves at PSG. 5 assists from midfield. Obviously, he had an insane final season at Benfica, didn't he? Defensively, so sound. His ball progression, amazing. It was very clear to see why PSG saw him as this kind of upgrade on Manuel Ugarte. But this year, PSG have been so dominant. They've looked even more dominant than last year. Their possession stats are through the roof. They're blowing teams away. You've got the likes of like Ousmane Dembele is finding really, really good form at the start of the season. Barcola dropped off a little bit last few games, but had a really strong start in the first 3. And that midfield is ticking along really, really nicely now. And we've seen Vitinha kind of take the more central role. And Joao Neves actually has been playing with, has been given quite a lot of freedom by Luis Enrique. And like 5 assists already. He's even popped up on the left-hand side quite a lot as well. His crosses into the box have been superb. He's producing more progressive passes than someone like Joshua Kimmich at Bayern Munich, even though he's playing a little bit more advanced than he would have been used to before. He's creating tons of chances. Like I think he's creating about 3 times as many chances as he was at Benfica. So I think he's been really great. And then my attacking midfielder, sorry, I should have revealed them both at the same time. My attacking midfielder, potentially a bit, I wouldn't say rogue. He has been so good. And following on from last season, I've gone for Cole Palmer. I've gone for Cole Palmer at 10.
You know what?
Yeah, like it's a bit of a Chelsea lover. Have you just gone for a midfield 3 of Chelsea players?
No. But Cole Palmer was a potential name that I had for 10, just because he's started the season very well. 2 goals, 4 assists, and he's playing we saw him playing right on the right hand side quite a bit last season, and this season it looks like he's playing a bit more centrally. I think under Maresca, he's probably going to be a player that flourishes the most after Nico Jackson. But I think he'll be very integral to getting goals and getting assists for Chelsea. He was a name that I had, but I went with Jamal Musiala.
Nice. You can't go wrong with Jamal Musiala.
I feel like
in any scenario.
You can't, and I just think it's just what he offers Bayern Munich over the last couple of years, and in particular this season, he creates goals for himself and for others. I think the way that he plays is very elegant. I've used that term quite a bit today, but he is very elegant in the way that he plays, in terms of the way that he can glide with the ball, and he uses his body very well to kind of shield the ball away from the opponent. He can get forward, he can create chances, he's a threat in the box, and I think defensively he does pop up for Bayern Munich as well sometimes. So I said Jamal Musiala, but Cole Palmer was the name I had.
Oh, interesting. I think that's going to be a good tussle. Who was your number 8?
My number 8 I went with was Joao Neves, but similar to the reason of Mazraoui, I think it's also about value for money. I think Benfica had a 120 million price tag for him. PSG ended up getting him for about 65 million euros, which is not a bargain, but it's better than what he was going for. And also, I just think his debut for PSG in the French league, that was probably the best performance I saw that week. And I still think like PSG, in terms of Ousmane Dembele, and I think Kolo Muani, they're good. Sometimes I just feel like they just lack that final trigger in the front line. But I think as long as they got Joao Neves and Vitinha behind them and keeping the ball ticking, keeping the ball progressing, I think that's very important. And I also think another thing on Joao Neves, when people look at midfielders in particular, they might look at the physique and think, that player might get barged off the ball and they're not strong enough. But when you're that good with the ball at your feet, you don't need to worry about strength, because you can read the game a lot quicker and a lot better than other people. So I think for me, Joao Neves, in terms of price tag, what he's offered PSG so far, and he'll probably be their player of the season.
Both went for him. Who have you got for 8?
On the same lines. Yeah. I went with Fede Valverde and Florian Wirtz. Okay. And I was really close to going for Jamal Musiala, because I do think he's been brilliant. And when I watched Bayern this season as well, playing a slightly different role as well, like he's almost dropping and picking the ball off the centre-backs quite a lot as well. He's kind of dictating the entirety of their attack.
Do you think that's to do with Kane having less of a role, dropping deeper?
Yeah, I'm not quite sure, to be honest. It's an interesting one, isn't it? Because ultimately, it will probably tire him out long-term, you think, if you're doing that much running before you even get into the final third. And he's so explosive in the final third as well. I think it's a really interesting call.
But then also you've got like Michael Olise as well, haven't you? Now that Bayern have got Michael Olise, you've got someone else who can really link up with Kane in the final third. And so there's someone else who can do a bit more ball carrying in that sense. I don't know whether that's something to do with it, because he's had such a good start to the season.
It could be. It could well be. But I think you can't go wrong with Jamal Musiala in any scenario. I think he was really unfortunate not to be nominated for the Ballon d'Or as well. But I went with Fede Valverde because I think he's slightly evolved his game. At least it's a very small sample size, as we've already covered. But this is a guy that's primarily known for his athletic ability and for the fact he could play on the right wing. He can, dominate an entire midfield with his running. He can even play as a right back pretty effectively as well. And that's kind of what he's been known for. He is the legs in that midfield when Kroos and Modric were kind of aging. But this year, I feel like with Kroos's sort of departure, he's had to play a much more sensible role. And because the forward line is so explosive, but with Mbappe joining, it's maybe got a little less defensive work rate behind it. I think he's had to be a little bit more sensible with his positioning as well. So he hasn't made those sort of 30, 40 metre dashes through midfield to the same extent. And it's really been down to his passing. And now, for the first time ever, he's entered the top 10 for passes into the final third, for progressive passing, and he's still got huge defensive numbers as well. Only Tchouameni has put in more defensive actions in that Real Madrid squad as well. So I wanted to give him a shout out for kind of showing an evolution in his game that I didn't necessarily think we'd see so quickly. And then Florian Wirtz, you know, I'm happy with Jamal Musiala. I'm happy with Cole Palmer to a certain extent as well. But I do think Florian Wirtz, you know, had that amazing season last year, of course, and he's carried on this year. I think his performance in their opening Champions League game against Feyenoord was super, super impressive as well. His first ever Champions League appearance, I think it was. And he's already he just makes the right decision all the time. And I think he's more dangerous in one-on-one situations than Musiala as well. And also is if it comes down to aesthetics, I think he's a slightly more natural dribbler than Musiala as well, who always kind of feels like he's just about to lose it, but keeps hold of it. Whereas Wirtz, it just feels like I can't really remember the last time I saw an attacking midfielder look so comfortable in pretty much any situation on the pitch, and shoots at really great times as well, just as the defender's not expecting it. So I went with Florian Wirtz, but to be honest, guys, I think we've recommended some good players there.
Yeah,
this is going to be difficult.
I think the tussle for number 10 is really tough.
Yeah.
It's really tough. I was like, it was between Joao Neves and Valverde for me as well as the 8. I think we probably need to shout out Granit Xhaka as well.
Yeah.
Probably not had quite as strong a start to this season as he did last year, but still has been pretty elite. I feel like myself and Mina maybe outvote you on Joao Neves.
What, just on pure numbers?
Just on pure numbers, yeah. But I would be happy to concede Wirtz at 10.
Okay.
But I don't know what you think, Mina. Or do you feel
who's
like...
the player you have to get in there for you?
It has to be Musiala for me.
Really?
It has to. But the thing is, again, I can agree with Florian Wirtz. I think he's a great player. I'm shocked that he didn't get a move in the summer. Of course, I don't think Leverkusen probably wanted to lose him. But it's a difficult one for me to concede. I'm happy to concede Joao Neves for Valverde because that's another player that I think is great. And like you said, he's evolved his game a lot, especially with Cruz's departure. So I can accept that.
So should we go Valverde?
But I can't let Musiala go.
Oh, so you'd rather... Okay.
I can't let Musiala go.
Letting down the Joao Neves team.
Yeah, sorry, I jumped ship.
Yeah, it really did.
Okay, there we have
luck.
it. So our dream midfield was Caicedo. Was it Caicedo? Did we go with
No.
Caicedo?
We went with Tchouameni.
We went with
Tchouameni.
Tchouameni, Fede Valverde, and Musiala. Nice midfield. Very nice midfield.
This is the fun part.
This is the fun
This
bit.
is the
Let's
fun
get
part.
to the real action. Right wing, Mina.
The youngest player, Lamine Yamal.
Yes.
You know what? Honorary mention for a few players, including like Mohamed Salah. But I just can't, like, what Yamal is doing, not just for his age, but the stage that he's doing it on. He said, bring me to the Euros, I will do it. He said, bring me Champions League, I will do it. La Liga, I will do it. He does not shy away from anything. And I also think, if this is him at 17, how amazing is he going to be at the age of 21 or 22 when he really starts to peak? There's some performances that really stood out for me this season. An assist that he got over the weekend outside of the boot. I think it was it was in the middle third of the pitch, outside of the boot, left foot. Bam, I think it landed for Raphinha, who put it into the back of the net. Champions League, using his strength for a young kid at that age, using his strength just to kind of barge the defender so that he's reading the ball very better than what a lot of people would, to then go on and progress the ball and get a goal. For me, I think this it shouldn't even be a debate. I think it has to be Yamal.
Yeah, I agree with you. He was my player that I have to have in. I think he's probably been the best player in Europe so far this season.
I can agree
and
with that.
Haaland might have better numbers, but Yamal, you throw in there 3 goals, 5 assists, doing it on every single stage. And he's the fact that he had a pretty full 2024. He didn't actually start that many games before 2024, but plays the full back half of last year, then plays a full Euros, winning the tournament, then goes into this tournament and doesn't take a backward step. If anything, it looks like he's got even better in a system where the sort of high turnover count, and they just look so much fitter than they have in previous years as well. I actually want to give a shout out to Raphinha as well, because originally I had a midfield of Tchouameni, Raphinha and Florian Wirtz, and Mikey messaged me yesterday and was like, we need an 8 in there, or you need to have some sort of...
Raphinha's played a lot on the left as well, though, hasn't he?
Yeah, but he's also played a lot as a 10. So I wanted him in there as a 10. But Mikey was a Scrooge, so I had to get Valverde in there. But I do think
out well for you.
Raphinha and Yamal as a combination has worked really, really effectively so far this season. And Dani Olmo, when he joined as well, now he's got injured, it's unfortunate, but that Barcelona attack is absolutely purring. I think Yamal's been central to it. So for me, he has to be the right winger.
I think it's quite harsh on Bukayo Saka. I obviously love Lamine Yamal, but I think Saka's been really underrated so far this season as well. I was having a look, and for goal creating actions, which is, you know, like assists as well as things like dribbles that then lead to someone scoring or getting a foul drawn, leading to like a penalty or a free kick that then gets scored. Bukayo Saka leads Europe, and he's already on 6 goals and assists. The last 2 seasons in a row, he's got 25 goals and assists, which is just absolutely elite numbers. I just think it says the consistency is shown. I think Saka is probably the best right winger in world football right now. Lamine Yamal has obviously had an amazing 12 months. I absolutely love him, and I also think like within the next 2 years, I do think Yamal is probably going to be in the conversation for. I think like at some point before his 20th birthday, he will be considered at some stage the best player in the world, just in general. Like
I'm surprised by this.
Slight history coming into it. I just still think Saka. I think Saka's track record is just puts him ahead of him, and he has played in a more difficult situation than Yamal so far this season in terms of having to be sacrificed against City, having to play in a really defensive system against Brighton. The fact that he's still putting up the numbers that he is, I think. Yeah,
it's not working for me. It's not working for me. I think that's really harsh. I think that's.
I don't think
most
it's
Arsenal
harsh.
Fans watching this would probably have Yamal in.
I don't know.
If it was a Premier League 11, I wouldn't have had Saka.
Who you have Salah over him?
Salah
has been great as well.
I can't agree with this argument for Saka, not over Lamine Yamal. I think he's had a great season, and also just one thing for Saka as well, it's just the consistency that he does it on. You know, season in season, he's always Mr. Reliable for Arsenal. So I know Arsenal fans appreciate that, and I think it was actually quite harsh for him to come off on the weekend. I would have taken off Martinelli in my opinion, but I think it was harsh. But I just think when we're looking at not just the system that they're playing in, but for me, even if we talk about that for Lamine Yamal, he's gone from system to system to system. 3 different managers from last season, Barcelona to Euros, and then now Hansi Flick, who I think he's going to have an absolute field day with working with. I don't think this position is. I don't think it would be up for debate about who would be the best player.
As well. I don't think we've seen a 17-year-old play this well since Mbappe in Monaco, and probably before that, like Pele.
I don't think Mbappe was anywhere near this level when he came through at Monaco. Personally,
maybe not.
I think, and also he was a little bit old. Maybe he was a little bit. Maybe he didn't come through at 16. Yeah. But I genuinely, I've not seen as good a player at this age in my lifetime, and it is interesting.
Yeah, you choose Saka.
Yeah, well, I don't know. I just think Saka has been more up against it, and I like obviously Yamal is amazing and his decision making is brilliant, and you know Barca are absolutely purring at the moment. But I just think Saka has had much tougher tests so far this season. I think Barcelona have been absolutely brilliant, and you know I think they're like they should be considered like La Liga favourites at this moment in time, and I think they should also be outside shouts for the Champions League given how well they've played so far. But I still think they're yet to face like a proper tough test, whereas Arsenal have faced a number of very tough tests so far this season. I'm happy to concede, by the way. I am happy to concede. Like,
I think he's fighting a losing battle.
Obviously a remarkable talent. Obviously a remarkable player. Like I've been singing Yamal's praises like as much as anyone over the last year. But I think Saka like just respect wise, like needs to be in this debate at the very least.
Needs to be in this debate. I just think the right now factor. I put Yamal ahead.
Yeah.
Right. Let's go to left wing. Mikey, I'm intrigued after your Saka shout.
Yeah.
Who have you got on the left?
I've gone a bit more. I guess I feel like my left wing shout is a lot. Well, I guess I thought Saka was quite a strong shout, but clearly not. I think my left wing shout should be pretty strong. I think Vinicius Junior has once again started the season on fire. Like I think he's been absolutely superb. 3 goals and 3 assists already this term, and I think it's also the evolution of him so quickly now with Mbappe in the team. He's become an elite creator all of a sudden. You know, he got 5 assists last year, already on 3 this year. I think in terms of expected assists, he's only 1 off his total of last season. He's creating double the amount of chances than he was. I think he's creating almost 3 chances a game now. He was creating 1.5 last year, and I know that in those early weeks Mbappe was not looking quite at the level. Now he very much does. And it almost feels like Vinicius is able to play with a bit more freedom. Like last year with Bellingham playing that kind of false 9 position and Vinicius and Rodrigo ahead of him, they were kind of, they were kind of tasked with both creating space for him, but also, that they kind of needed to score goals as well. And, obviously he had such an amazing goal scoring streak towards the end of the campaign. He is by most measures the favourite for the Ballon d'Or this year. But in some ways, I think with Mbappe there now, who you can rely on so much for goals, it feels like Vinicius is able to strut his stuff a little bit more. That outside of the boot assist on the weekend was absolutely superb. Like, it just feels like he's got a bit more to his game now, and there's not quite as much pressure, even though he is still doing it. There's not quite as much pressure for him to take on 3 players and score. Like, he can actually, take on a player, look for the pass for Mbappe, and even late in games having Endrick coming on as well and offering that kind of energy. Rodrigo looks so good this season as well. I think he is also worthy of a shout for the right wing position, but not being quite at the level of say Yamal or a Saka. I think Vinicius has to be in there for me.
Mina,
I agree.
You have Vinicius as well?
I think my front three, I'm not going to give away my striker yet, but I think my front three was kind of my solid shouts. I think Vinicius is the best player in world football right now. I actually think that. I think he's the best, and what it's also his evolution from a couple of years ago having a bust up with Benzema to being the main guy for Real Madrid. Like that's a real story. And my one thing I was skeptical about was Mbappe coming in. How would that work with Vinicius, especially because Mbappe traditionally likes to play coming off that left hand side, but they've made it work. 3 goals, 3 assists, and also I feel like he's gonna, as time goes on, he'll be playing in a more different role from last year, where he's not gonna be the guy that has to take the game by the scruff of the neck, because there's going to be other options. Rodrigo started well. Of course, if you've got Bellingham in the team as well, box crashing, that's another option. But for me, Vinicius is the best player in world football right now, and he's got his Ballon d'Or shouts, and rightly so. I think, again, debates could be had about the people that are listed in that, but I just feel like with Vinicius, I'm never in doubt if Real Madrid are down or chasing a goal in a goalless game. If Vinicius is there, I'm never in doubt that they're not going to get the goal. And I feel like that says a lot. I think even his Champions League campaign last year, he's just kick-started the season this year in a good way. And I know Real Madrid haven't had the best starts. They haven't gone on a 5-game winning streak or 4-game winning streak. But I just feel like Vinicius will continue to grow throughout the season, especially with Bellingham maybe missing out games to injury.
I mean, one of the goals they linked up with last night against Alaves, Bellingham and Mbappe, just like a really simple 1-2. But it just really looked so smooth at the time. I mean, just to play devil's advocate, to put another name out there, I think Luis Diaz deserves a shout.
He was my honourable mention. Yeah. Five goals in 5 games, exactly. 2 doubles.
Yeah, 2 doubles as well. I mean, he only scored 8 league goals in the entirety of last year. It took him until mid-February to get 5 goals last year. And last year was really difficult. He missed a number of big chances in big games. He actually missed 13 big chances across the whole Premier League season. Only 9 players missed more. And given the fact he's not a striker, that's a pretty huge number for a winger. He obviously had the situation with his dad and the kidnapping. That was really, really horrible. And, I don't know him personally, but that would affect me. So I no doubt affected his form as well. But this year, he just looks so confident. And where he's always been an excellent dribbler, he's always worked exceptionally hard, he's just calming down in front of goal. Now, I think he's gone from getting about 32% of his shots on target up to 64%, which is a really, really solid tally. And he's getting now double the amount of shots on target per game as a result. More goals will follow, and he looks absolutely brilliant. Obviously, if you're including the last few years, if you're including last year in particular, Vinicius Junior has got to be in there. But I wanted to give Luis Diaz a shout. So are we going? Let's go with Vinicius Junior. I think that's fair enough. Yeah. And then striker, and then there was one. There is a good shout, I think, for Lewandowski, but I imagine we've all probably got the same one. I mean, Mina, who was your? I want to put the words into your mouth.
It's the guy that's right behind you.
Erling
Haaland. Yeah,
good use of the set, that.
Yeah. I can't. 10. He's got more goals than 16.
Why did I look round as well?
You probably
built this set. I was like, wait, who? Where?
10 goals in the Premier League. He's got more goals than 16 teams in the Premier League. Man. That, he's breaking records. And I know a lot of the time the debate, even like I see on television between pundits, a lot of the time the debate is, well, when he's not involved and he's not scoring goals, he's not doing anything. But he's scoring. It's the manner in which he's scoring goals is quite ridiculous. Some strikers, I think, need 2, 3, 4 chances before they kind of strike the ball to an ability to find the back of the net. But a lot of the time, it seems like he just needs 1 or 2. And it's not just that, but also it's the runs that he's making. I think the goal that he scored against Arsenal, the run that he makes to kind of occupy the space between the 2 centre-backs, that's a striker's run. He doesn't need a lot of time. He looks up and he actually kind of fakes it, where I think Raya thinks he's taking it with his right and he just does it with the outside of his left foot. That's a very good finish. But 10 goals in 5 Premier League games, 16 teams haven't even scored that. Manchester United haven't even scored that. So yeah, I have to go. It could be a long time.
If we keep on underperforming XG at the rate we are at the moment.
And it's also the manner in which he's breaking records. Like, depending on how long he stays in the Premier League, he could go on to break quite a few more records over the next couple of seasons. Yeah, so for me, I had to put Haaland, but like you said, Lewandowski is a shout, and I also think Harry Kane's a shout as well.
Yeah.
Even Mbappe, like he last few weeks has been brilliant for Real Madrid, but yeah, it's got to be Haaland, hasn't it? Like, there's not really much more to say about him. Last season he had a bit of an off year, still won the Golden Boot, despite being injured for a fair amount of time as well, despite like missing a lot of chances early in the season. And this year it's just been polar opposite. Like, every chance he gets, he scores. Like, we've already seen such a range of finishing from him as well, which I feel like that was something that was maybe underrated in his game before. But the fact that even that was it the second goal against West Ham. So high into the roof of the net, like that is a goal that I have seen him do before, definitely. But it's the fact that he's in 1 month he has shown his range of finishing, kind of game to game to game to game. It's really being talked about now, and I still think like aside from his goals, like his overall play is still underrated. Like, it is still underrated. Like, yes, he doesn't have to do that much because his main role is scoring, but like I think he is still a very solid player on the ball as well. Like, he wouldn't be allowed in this City team if that wasn't the case. And there was an interesting thing. I think it was JJ Bull who did a little video on it. He's caught offside almost never, which is pretty mad. It's like the whole like and obviously this is the system as well, but the fact that he makes so many runs and yet is never caught offside, or barely ever caught offside, is really, really interesting as well, because that shows that the understanding that he has with his teammates is so in simpatico that if ever there's a run where he's offside, he's basically that he's never going to get that ball's never going to get to him. So yeah, that's really, really interesting as well, like the way that the understanding that he has with the teammates around him, and also in a team where you've got Savio, who's just joined the club, and yet he was able to pick him out with that ball so easily. It looked so effortless. Like, he's able to have a really close relationship with a front line that is moving all around him. We've not seen Foden play as much this year as last year so far. Like, again, we've seen the Pep roulette, but Haaland is the key to it. He's the constant. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think he's taking the highest shots per 90 of his career. He's now getting 3.6 shots on target per 90. In That's general insane, stat parlance, you say like 3 shots per 90 is great to have for a striker. I think Rasmus Højlund was at 1.7 last year. He's getting double that and more on target per 90. He's getting 72% of his shots on target per 90. It's an insane number. Only 2 players in Europe's top 5 leagues that have had 10 shots are getting more than that on target per 90. He's being so efficient. It's just the best word I could find for it. And yeah, I think he deserves a spot. Shout out Lewandowski, 6 goals, 2 assists in 6 games today at 36 years old, when you were kind of wrote off as a bit of not a forgotten man, but a guy that was, his best days were clearly behind him. I think he's been amazing. And people forget that in his only full season under Hansi Flick in 2020-2021, I think he scored 48 goals in 40 games. So let's see whether this rate of form continues. But for now, it's got to be Haaland. It's a pretty good team, guys. It is a pretty good team. Do you have any changes to that, though? Do you disagree with any of our shouts? Let us know on social media and in the comments down below. Huge thanks to Mikey as ever, but a massive thanks to Mina Ibrahim. What a fantastic guest. Thank you so much for coming on the Lowdown for this week.
No, thank you for having me. Just
quickly, where can people find you if they missed it at the start of the video for whatever reason?
Yeah, you can find me on all socials at Mina Football, YouTube, Twitter, Instagram, TikTok. Yeah, everywhere.
Tune in. She's everywhere. It's great content. And thank you so much for watching this week's Lowdown, guys. We'll catch you next week. Bye-bye.